Hey everybody, welcome to this short training. My name is Stephen Bates. Welcome to how to get the most out of your expensive team. We'll just wait a few moments to let everybody in as they start to come in. That'd be great. Say hello. Hopefully you can hear me fine. It would be great if you let me know. So just give it a couple of minutes and we'll get going. As usual, there are ways you can communicate. You can put your hand up if you want to speak. You can put something in the chat. So it'd be great if you said hello and basically tell me that you can hear me, which is always a good place when we start with these, isn't it? So yeah, great that you're here. I can see people just coming into the room now. That's fantastic. So we'll just wait a few more minutes. As always, if you get any questions, just put them in the chat. The aim will be to run this maximum of hour, hopefully. Mostly should be less than that, and then we'll have time for Q&A. But if you put some questions in the chat, then that's absolutely fine. I'll see if I can answer them as we go. And sometimes I'll leave some of them till we get the chance to answer them in context. So it just depends what we're talking about, what you're asking. So can someone just say hi to me in chat mode, and just so I know that you're there and you can hear okay? Because that's the strange thing about doing these things, isn't it? You just never know until you someone actually said, yeah, loud and clear. Good. Hi Steve. Hi David. It's good to know. Some of the worst things is when you've been on these things and you just can't hear the person. So hey Sarah, how you doing? So the aim of this is we're going to get going as soon as we possibly can and not keep you waiting around. The aim of this is to give you information. So the one thing that you won't be getting at the end of this training is a big pitch. There won't be a big pitch at the end. All there'll be is just an offer. If you want to talk to me about something, hi Ricardo, how you doing? You have a chance to book in a call or message us and we can have a chat. So don't worry, no big pitch, no big sales at the end. It will simply be information to make you think differently about one of the most important things, which is how do you get the most out of the people that you employ? So I'm going to go with the belief that you have a team, or that you're thinking of having a team possibly. It may be your own company. It may be a company that you manage, or you're a leader within. So you may have your own team, it may be your own company, or you maybe have your own business. So it's going to cover all of these and we're going to go from there. Hi Mark, how you doing? So let's get going. Let's have a look at why do people spend so much money on probably the most expensive thing on a consistent basis, which is a team, and then not get the best out of them? Seems a bit strange, doesn't it? So let's get going. Everyone ready? Hope you are. Okay, so who is this session for? As I said, business owners, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. So I'm going to talk about the difference between business owners and business leaders when we get to a little bit further on. But it's for anybody, as I said, who has a team or thinks of having a team and wants to get more out of them. So who am I? Very quickly, go through it very, very quick. I'm Stephen Bates. I'm the founder of Certain Change back in 2002. Quite ridiculous how time has flown. Husband, father, stepfather. I've got the Brady Bunch. I've got 5 kids. I'm an ex-physiotherapist. And interestingly, yesterday I was speaking to somebody, a very senior person in a large organization. They just turned to me and said, why should I listen to an ex-physiotherapist? I run a business. I run a very big business. Why should I listen to an ex-physiotherapist? Well, I'm going to explain that in a minute. Okay. And a little bit about me. I'm a passionate tango dancer. I'm looking forward to getting back into that when lockdown allows us to. So the purpose of this session, very simply, to show you why both individuals and teams underperform when they don't need to, and what to do about it. Because it's, a team is made up of individuals. That's the purpose of a team. But what we're going to be looking at is how to leverage and get the best out of a team, but you need to think about it as an individual as well. So we're going to do both. So you can apply this to yourself. This is really important. It's not just about how you apply it to the people that you employ or in your team, but also to yourself. So everything applies in lots of different contexts. And when we're working with our clients, we design the right plan for them. But people are individuals and we come together in all sorts of different teams. So, big question. Why do so many good ideas and companies fail to hit the results they should? That's a big question. I'm going to answer it from my expertise. There's many other reasons that you can answer this, but that won't be my expertise. But from my expertise, I'm going to be looking at two things: individuals who aren't working at their best and teams which aren't working as best, as I said. So a little while ago, we did a poll up on LinkedIn. And in 24 hours, we had 90,000 plus people viewed that poll, and a hell of a lot of people answered it. And overwhelmingly, they said that the thing that stops them from working at their best is lack of leadership and being micromanaged. So when we get a poll, I don't know what we get, anywhere between 15 to 100,000 people looking at our polls. And this one went off like a rocket. And the things by far they said were the biggest problems for stops them from working at the best is lack of leadership and micromanagement. Now, when you think about that, that's probably someone who needs to be managed or has a leader as answering that. So that could be everybody, unless you're right at the very top and this is your own company. So that's a lot of people. A lot of people are interested in this. But when we work with the leaders, they say they want things like more accountability, people to have more initiative, more motivation, work harder, or whatever they think they need. So they have a wish list. I wish my team was. I wish they would do this. I wish they would stop doing this. So you've got 2 points of view here. You've got people when they are being led or managed, and people who are doing the leading and managing. So who's right is the basic question. There's a lot of people saying, well, you're not managing me properly. You're not leading me properly. You're not giving me what I need. But the leaders are then saying, well, I want you to do this. So what we've got going on here is 2 points of view, hey, which is normal. So to answer this question, I'm going to need to back up. I'm going to give you a few frameworks to work with and think about so we can actually answer that question properly, because without these frameworks, it's going to be much harder to understand. There are two very practical things to focus on to massively improve performance for both individuals and teams. And this is what we're really going to be discussing. We're going to be discussing the concept of creating leverage. And we're going to look at something called sabotage loops. And this applies to everybody within the team: leaders, managers, team members, absolutely anybody. So we're going to be looking at these from different points of view, what they are, why they're so important. And as someone said to me, Stephen, where's the thing about skills? Because what we tend to do is we tend to think about, if we've got a bunch of people and we want to improve them, we go, well, you need to be better at this. And we want them to learn some new skills or get better at those skills. Well, actually, creating leverage is about usage of skills, but maybe not in the way you think. But we're going to be talking about skills within leverage. But also, when we talk about sabotage loops, there's a lot of people with a lot of skills which they won't use. Not don't, won't use. So I'm going to be exploring both of these things, bringing it all together at the end, so you can then take a look at yourself, your teams, your managers, if you have those, and think, which one is it that's the problem, or is it both? And therefore you can start creating a plan. Hope that's okay with everybody. Does that make sense? Is everybody okay? Yeah. So any questions, as always, throw them up for me and I'll do my best to answer them. So another framework I want to give you is something I call the ESH, or the Entrepreneur Superhighway. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur running your own business. I'm talking about entrepreneurial people, leaders who have that entrepreneurial drive to, even if they're working within a business and running a business which isn't their own, they still think quite entrepreneurially. And I've put it down into 5 stages. So when I'm working with my clients and I say, you think like an entrepreneur, some of the people have been in the corporate world for quite a long time are quite surprised I say that, because they don't think entrepreneur applies to them. But what I'm talking about is the desire and drive to do well. They have ambition, and they'll push it to succeed in life. So we break it down into 5 stages: worker, entrepreneur, which you can see is a different color because you do not want to be there, solopreneur, and business leader and business owner. So when I'm working with people, I want to know where they are. So all of them, apart from number 2, which you don't want to be at, act and behave in different ways. Well, entrepreneur definitely acts in a way you don't want to be doing, which is workers. They do what they're almost like what they're told to do. Is that they are managed. They come in, they say, this is your job, do this, and you'll get paid for it. Entrepreneurs often want to start their own business or have started their own business, but they haven't managed to succeed yet. They haven't got where they want to be. So they spend a lot of time and effort, but they haven't got the results. Solopreneur, as you can sort of understand, runs their own small business. That's just them on their own. Now, business leader, these are people who run a business. And these 2 distinctions I'm going to come back to in a second between business leader and business owner. But a business leader leads a business, and they could be at any level within that. They could be C-suite, or they could be senior management, or could be the CEO or the founder. But the business owner, obviously, is the owner of the business. So the reason I put this out there, is I'm going to talk to you in a minute, is because everybody actually has 2 core goals. When it comes down to it, whatever the business is, whatever the sector is, whatever their ambition is, there are 2 core goals that signify success as an entrepreneur or business leader. And the first one we all recognize, which is growing income. Now, a business needs to grow income to improve their income. And most people say, yeah, that's a good metric for a business that's performing well. The second one, though, is a little bit unexpected. The second one is about controlling time. And when you are busy, the one thing that people want more than anything else is the ability to control time. So you may have all the money as a solopreneur, but what happens is you run out of time. So the more successful someone is, or even if they're not being successful and they're pushing hard, the one thing people want is to have the ability to control time, both inside work and to have some time outside to enjoy the fruits of their labors. So when we look at the entrepreneurial superhighway, how different people at different levels look at this combination of growing income and controlling time is very different. And this is taking us where you need to be to think about getting the best out of your team. So a worker cannot really control their income and their time that much. They usually have set hours, they have work that's decided for them, and they're paid a certain price. So workers have very little control of time and their income. Entrepreneurs spend a lot of time trying to grow their income, but often they don't get where they want to be. Solopreneurs often grow more income, but if they're being successful, they run out of time because it's just them. And this is where we get into the really important thing we need to talk about, which is leverage, is what happens when a business leader or business owner is working at this level, because a business leader can grow income by managing, controlling, using, and leveraging the time of others in their team. And a business owner, if they've got good business leaders within it, can step outside of their business, if they're doing it well, and get all of their time back and still grow their income. So does this make sense? I hope it does to you, because this is where we need to be to get the best out of our teams. So some leaders think and behave as solopreneurs or workers. They either hold back from creating their first team, but some have a team but still act like a solopreneur or worker, where they don't delegate, where they don't trust people to take on tasks. They might micromanage everybody because they really, really want to know what's going on. So what happens is they don't get the best out of their team because they're not using their team that they've hired to be able to work at their very best, which, to be honest, also annoys the team because People like to be trusted. They like to feel like they're improving and they're growing in their business. And then what happens is they get bored, they get fed up, they feel, and micromanaging is one of the worst things to be on the receiving end of. And a lot of people leave because they don't feel important, they don't feel trusted. So the aim of this is to make sure you're getting the best out of your team. To grow, they need to move to a true business leader or owner, but not just in name only, in how they behave, to how they use their team. And this is the first, the most important thing. It's absolutely crucial. So there's saying you can always make more money, but you can't create more time. Most people have heard that. But actually, as an individual, this statement is pretty true. We have 24 hours a day, and it's divided up into the time that we allot to the different things. But it's actually false if you're a business leader. And this is where business leaders can do something quite amazing, and they create leverage. And they create leverage because it becomes their work. The work of a leader or manager is to create leverage. Now, if you think about that, you think, okay, that's obvious. But how many times have you done things which it's you being on your own, doing work that could be done by somebody else, which means that you're not doing something at the level you really should be working at? Now, if you take that through a whole organization, and people will be working below their pay grade, and they're not using the people that they've got, their experts they've got, or the new people they can train up, or whatever it is, what it means is they're spending more time doing jobs, tasks, operational things, as opposed to leveraging the people that they brought in for their expertise, knowledge, and experience. And it's such an easy trap. And I work with people day in, day out who've got themselves in this trap, and they don't know why they're in it, and they don't know how to get out of it. But they know things are not as going well as they should be, and they're wondering why deadlines are missed, and they're working crazy hours, they're working weekends, they can't take time off from work, they're always on checking emails or waiting for the phone call from the office, because everything comes through them. They're working as a worker as opposed to working as a leader or manager. So leverage creates time. By your use of your time, you can leverage the time of other people for them to do tasks that perhaps they're better suited to do. And therefore you get more control. One of the most desired things in the world, control. Everything's okay. We're not firefighting. We're actually making progress. I know that person has got this under control for me. I don't need to check in it because I can trust them, because they're well trained, they know what they're doing, and they've proved to me that they are capable. I can relax, I can feel comfortable, which means I can go and do something at my pay grade. So when we're working, actually training leaders, training managers, and this is, we work with people from just starting out, we actually work with people at C-suite level and CEO levels. One of the most common things that people crave and ask for our help with is better influencing skills. And better influencing skills meaning, how can I create better leverage? How can I negotiate better? How can I get my point of view across? How can I be heard in every direction? So I want you to think about this as an incredibly important thing about leverage. Most people think their teams downwards. So the first thing to fix is, after sabotage loop, and we'll come back to that in a second, is getting my team to work well, leveraging them, giving them the skills, responsibility, the plan, the structure, so they can do a great job. But most managers and leaders have to interact with other colleagues, other teams, and upwards. And one of the most common things, especially the higher and higher up the organization, the more people desire to be better at influencing upwards. They have an idea and they want to be more skillful at getting their boss or somebody outside in another part of the organization, if it's a bigger organization, to actually say, yeah, that's a great idea, let's do that. So then they take it on within their department, their team. So influencing skills are incredibly important. And This is all about when you can understand people at a very practical level. So a lot of people, and I was talking to a colleague today. He was chatting to a CEO of a company in America that's possibly working with us. And they said the thing they wanted most was to be able to understand people so they can influence at a higher level, both their team, how to motivate and get the best out of their team, but also sideways and upwards, because their training, their pathway of their career had never taken them in the direction of where they really needed to learn about people. And if you think about it, it's a bit crazy, because some people are fantastic specialists, or they're systems people, really good at constructing or running systems. But every system in an organization at some point is controlled by people. And one of the things that people don't really understand at a very practical level, I'm not talking about psychometrics, I'm not talking about theory, I'm talking about sitting in a room with somebody, hearing what they're saying and understanding why they made that decision. Just live, real time, not I need to go and think of a book or go and ask somebody. I can ask questions and I think, I know why you're thinking that, and I know why you're paying attention to this point rather than what everybody else is speaking about. So understanding people at a very practical level is what is the skill you need and the knowledge you need to create leverage. And a lot of leaders and managers, they never learn this. Most leaders and managers around the world have never had any decent people skills or leadership or management training. Even if they've had some, this is a skill that if you have it, makes life so much easier, because every single thing we do in the world involves people, and people are weird. People don't make logical decisions as much as we like them to. But that's also what makes a team work, because if you think, a team is made up of individuals, because you want a team of individuals. You want a bunch of people with different skills, different knowledge, different experience, different attitudes, different ways of doing things. But the job of the leader and the manager is to glue them together to make them work really well together to get the job done, whatever the jobs happen to be. And most people don't understand people. And it can be tough to admit that, but well, we have so many conversations. And the conversation today with my colleague, and they were reporting back to me, and they didn't want to admit it. They didn't want to be in a group training. They didn't want to talk about it out loud. They wanted to keep it quiet because they're so senior. They didn't want anybody to know that they were struggling. And that's one of the big problems we're going to talk about. And that's when we start to understand it's about how we are as a leader individually, how we are impacting our team, and then how we create influence. So is this making sense? Hopefully it is. Any comments, any thoughts? Just let me know. Any questions? So another framework I want you to think about is some hideous, scary statistic. Now, around Price's law, it's a concept of a piece of work where a guy called Price said that 50% of the work is done by the square roots of the people in the organization. Now, even if this is not exactly true, because he modeled it in academia, but other people have looked at it in other areas. And even if it's remotely true, this is a scary, scary thing. This is an absolutely scary problem. But it's actually quite easy to fix. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. So most people think of org charts like this: position, skills. What person do we need with what set of skills in this position to make this team work? Yeah, pretty normal stuff. Over here at Certain Changeland, we like to think of them like this. Who in your team is a positive earner for the company? Who is neutral? And who costs money? Now, I'm not talking about the difference between people who bring in money literally to the business, like the sales team, versus somebody else who's a cost center. I'm talking about, are they producing good work which makes the company money? So there's a lot of people who actively don't bring money in, but they have a really important part of the organization that actually, when you put it all together, makes the whole thing tick. So the company does well. So if you were to look at your org chart like this, and you're thinking, are they working at their best? And the scary thing about Price's law says that the larger the organization, because it's a square root, less people are doing 50% of the work. And when you get down to the 214 people, now, even if that is 50% not true, that's a crazy small number of people. And that should really make you go, wow. And if you're a CFO watching this or a CEO watching this, you should be going, ooh, how much am I putting in salary to people who are not actually creating an active return, a good return? So what we're going to be looking at is a very simple thing for you to think about. How many of your team are underperforming? And if you look at it and you just think, whoa, I think they may be, but actually I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to gauge this. So one of the things we do is we actually teach people how to look at their people and how they're underperforming and why they're underperforming, which is going to get to. This is the sabotage loop things. So if you think, how many of my team are actually underperforming? Well, there's two things that are really, really important. It's leverage, as I said, to get one person can get the best out of a team of 8. Now, if you imagine all the way through the tiers, say you're the CEO and you've got a C-suite. Well, the CEO's job is to make the leverage the hell out of the C-suite. And the C-suite leverages the hell out of their senior managers. And the senior managers leverage the hell out of those teams. And so it grows. Leverage is fantastic for that. It's absolutely amazing. But the other thing is, a lot of people are not held to be accountable. There's so many people, and I've been into so many companies and I've been in meetings and they have fantastic meetings and chats and conversations, and nobody ever says what the actions are and who's going to do them, by when. Now, there's reasons for that, but it happens so much that if you do these two things, increase leverage and put a positive and almost enjoyable accountability system in, you'll beat Price's law every time. Every time you'll smash it. So the best thing about leverage, it's infinitely expandable. You may be one person with a team. Well, you're going to create leverage and get the best out of your team. Soon as you start to having layers and hierarchy, it expands and it never stops if you do it well. And accountability is brilliant because you can test it. You can actually examine who is doing what. But what happens is most managers, I'm going to be really direct because this is what I've been doing for the last 20 years, don't know how to do either really effectively. They can do it much better. Most people can do it much better. And I'll tell you why, and it's very obvious in a moment, but they can do it much, much better and much more easily and relax about it. And a lot of managers fear making people accountable. So not only do they not know how to do it very well, they're actually scared of it and the consequences of it and what happens if. And so a lot of the time, they don't hold them to account, even though they know they should, because this is not rocket science. They know it should be doing it. But if we think about how most people think of the word responsibility, taking responsibility, well, how many people have you met in your careers that even though they have a position of responsibility, try to avoid the responsibility? And you see it in meetings all the time. You know, things get slipped and, oh, I just forgot about that. Well, it happens all of the time because that's human nature, unfortunately. And there's reasons for that. Fear of being judged, fear of being criticized, fear of whatever. So accountability goes out the window when it doesn't need to. So simple question: in your team, in your company, who needs to be better at creating and leveraging and being accountable? Who needs to be better at these creating leverage and being held to account? Yeah, plenty. Yeah, thanks, Mark. You're right. So when you get these two very simple things as your focus, what you can then do is go, how do we do this? What person needs what particular, whatever it is, skill set, way of managing, shifting job. There's loads of things you can do. It's so complex in that respect. But if you focus on these two things, creating leverage and creating accountability, then what you do is you're focusing on something you can test and absolutely know if it's working or not, which is actually quite a nice thing if you're going to have to spend money with us to come and teach how to do that, obviously. So that's what we do. But it's got to be something you can test, because otherwise it goes in one ear, goes out the other, nothing happens, which is pointless. So 2 areas to focus on as a leader to massively improve performance, both for individuals and teams, is first of all creating leverage. But now I want to get onto sabotage loops, because I'm going to be showing you something that most people don't realize. Sabotage loops is my expression and my phrase. And this is devastating. And I've got hundreds, literally hundreds, thousands of examples of this over the last 20 years. And I need to explain to you what sabotage loops are, why they happen, and what you can do about them, because they can be fixed. So this is back to me being a physio. Is everyone okay with this? Everyone catching up? Any questions? Or are you just happy me to broadcast at you for the moment? Put your questions up. 25 years ago, easily, actually, I need to change this slide. It's over 25 years ago. As a young physiotherapist, I was working with my clients, and they were coming in real physical pain, because they didn't come in because it was fun. They came in because they have a problem. Human beings are mainly problem orientated, much more than you think. So when we like to say that we're ambitious and we have goals and everything else, the first thing we need to do is make sure we get rid of our problems. So when can't walk because you've twisted your ankle, or you've hurt your back, or your shoulder's not working, when it gets bad enough, they tend to phone me up and say, help, I'm in trouble. And when someone comes in acute physical pain, you would think they would do everything they could to help themselves. And that's not the case. And I'm going to explain this, and you're just going to go, yeah, I know that. I've done that. I say, welcome to being human. But when I gave my clients simple things to do, simple exercises, don't sit in front of a computer for 8 hours. Don't do this. Go for a walk. Really simple stuff. I wasn't selling them expensive pieces of equipment or mattresses or anything like that. Simple stuff that anybody could do. About 40% of them didn't do it. About 40%. And this number has been consistent at all the niches and things I've looked at over the years. So it's a human thing. 40% of people sabotage their own recovery. And my question was, if we are doing this when we're in acute physical pain, real acute physical right now pain, can't go to work, it's costing me money, I can't pick up my kids, I can't do life at all. If we are in such a bad way in that situation, and we are still not doing the things that are actually, we know is useful to us. When I said to them, why didn't you do it? And I said, well, I was busy, or, oh yeah, I forgot. Or my favorite response was, and they didn't know. They didn't know why they hadn't done something which was going to help them. So if 40% of people are walking around doing that, or limping around doing that, when and where else do we do it? Well, the answer is everywhere, in every context, because it's a process of how we think. It's an accidental process of how we think. But this is where we mess up work, business, money, health, relationships. We do stuff that we know is not right for us. And 40% of people have a severe enough way of doing this that it costs them real problems. So these sabotage loops are everywhere, and entrepreneurs have them, business leaders have them, managers have them, team members have them. I spent a lot of time with one that was created when I was a kid, and most of these are created way before we ever get to work. And mine was because of something a teacher did to me when I was 5 years old, and I became the shyest kid in school, which meant I didn't actually tell anybody about what I was good at. So I became incredibly shy. I isolated myself. So these sabotage loops are a problem that we create, which everybody has. 40% of people have them. And if you've got a team, some of your team will be doing it, which means that they won't put their hand up with a suggestion, just in case they get it wrong and they might get laughed at. They won't stand up and volunteer to do something. They may have some skills they already know, but they don't have the confidence to use them. So many people hold themselves back in all sorts of ways, not because they can't do it. It's because a part of their thinking says, I'm not going to let you. So procrastination. Now, procrastination, quick word on that. Procrastination at the right time and the right place is useful. It's actually good part of decision making. But if it's excessive and you keep doing it and you keep holding yourself back knowing that you should be doing something, then that's when it's a sabotage loop, rather than good procrastination when you're just going, hang on a second, let's think about this. Anybody got a sabotage loop? I won't ask you to put it up, but I promise you 40% of people do. I've had one big time, and it's costly. And then if you employ staff, you're employing people who are holding back when they don't need to. So an example of this is a solopreneur loop, just one example, when it occurs, entrepreneurs and business leaders can't relinquish control, their perception of control of the business they've created to or run. So what they do is, these are the micromanagers. These are the people that have to hold on to everything because they can't make that leap from feeling I'm in control. So it's the feeling of being in control is important to them, but actually having a team that's running well means that they are in control because they can go home, they can switch off, they can go on holiday because the team is working. And I want to just say thank you to my amazing team, because I needed some time off over the last couple of months, getting close to a little bit of burnout, and my team just picked it up and carried it for me so I could. So I was in control of my business because I had a great team I could rely on. But the illusion is, if I hold on to this control and do everything myself and be in everything, then I feel in control rather than being real world control. And there's a big difference between real control and the feeling of being controlled. And what happens with these sabotage loops, we try and feel in control more than we actually are in real control. So if you do want to book in and talk to us about this, perhaps you've got a sabotage loop. It's so common. We explain the difference between real control and the illusion of control. So most people identify this as a conflict inside their head, not a debate. If you ever watched anybody making their mind up, what they'll often do is they'll go, on one hand, I'll do this, and they'll lean on one leg and then they'll lean on the other leg, or they'll wave their hands about. And what they're doing is basically debating the options. And that's cool. That's normal decision making. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But when you have a conflict inside your head of this sabotage loop, it almost feels like two people. It's not, but it feels like two people. This is where we, get the metaphors, of, the angel and the devil on my shoulder telling me I'm rubbish, I can't do things. So it feels like, most people say, it's like two people inside their head trying to run your business, your career, your finances, your life. The real you says, I can do this. I can look after myself. I can be safe, but also can make this work. But this other part of your brain says, no, you can't do that. You're no good. You're rubbish. You're not good enough. And this is the conflict. I'll give you an example of this. I worked with a client who had a cap on how much they allowed themselves to earn. It was their own business. They were a solopreneur, and they were doing very well. Yeah, they were doing very well in their industry by most standards. So very talented person, really good at what they did, both marketing wise and the actual thing they did. Obviously, I've got to be really careful because of confidentiality. And what they did, though, is they got up to a certain level of how much they earned every month. And the moment they got to a certain number, and it was a good number by anybody else's standard in their industry, they started sabotaging their sales calls. They started being late for them, missing them, almost discouraging their clients from booking in, from signing up to their courses. And it was a very, very specific number every month. They got up to that bit and they just went, ugh. And that's because they didn't believe they were allowed to have any more. And this went back all the way to their childhood. It had nothing to do with business. It's all about not being greedy. And other people, it's like, I'm not good enough. This is imposter syndrome. All sorts of these things create this sabotage loop. Well, I deserve to move forward. I grow my business and be successful. So that's why they contacted me. But they had no idea why the other side was so good at blocking. But it wasn't random. It's never random. They got up to a certain amount every month and they started to sabotage the calls every single time. And they never broke through. So sabotage loops can be the owners of the business, the managers of the business, the leaders, and the people in the team. Happens to anybody. So we're told that we do this to protect ourselves, but that's actually not the biggest reason. Everyone thinks so we don't fail, we don't look stupid, we don't lose our money. Everyone knows that. That's what all the coaches teach you. But actually, the purpose of not failing or not losing your money or not messing up your business is so then you can go on and be happy. And this is the reason why I've never found anybody in the last 25 years almost where not a single person wanted to damage themselves with these things, but they did it a lot accidentally because you've got two incredibly strong motivators. The first one, don't mess up, don't fail. Second one, well, if you're not failing and messing up, that means you can succeed. The only problem is this sabotage loop thinking never, ever can work in the real world, but it's really trying to control our emotions, trying to not be scared, trying not to fail. So this is when we hyper procrastinate. I think we should do this. I think we should invest in this. I think we should go for this. And the other part of the brain goes, no, don't do it. It's too dangerous. What happens if you fail? And it's excessively fearful, excessively doubtful. So what happens is we damage all areas of our lives because we're accidentally, this is all accidental, by the way. It's not deliberate. It's often very unconscious. We don't want to do it because that's why we have the argument. So back to our team situation. You have people in your team you're paying who have this that stops them operating at their level. That's just one example. There's another lady I know from many, many years ago is a great example. If she was praised in public, she was really good at what she did. If she was brought on stage and praised in public for what she had done, how she'd helped the company, she would have gone sick. And actually she did go sick once. That's why we got the conversation. She would go sick, not to be put up on stage and clapped by hundreds of people. But if you took her around the back of the stage and a couple of the senior people said, thank you very much, and gave her some flowers and champagne, whatever, she would love it. Absolutely love it. So back to understanding people. If you understand your team and you can see when someone's like this, you can change your behavior, how you lead and manage them, and therefore they wouldn't go sick. And literally, again, I was speaking to my colleague and they were talking about with a client whom they're one of the most critical people within the team, kept going sick because they couldn't handle the pressure. They were the person that were holding it all together. They were the manager. They were the person that was holding the team together. And they kept going sick because they couldn't handle it. And the managers didn't know how to do that. The leaders didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't understand what was triggering the pressure and the stress. So therefore, this person was in the business, out the business, in the business, but they were so valuable. They wanted to keep hold of them, but they were away a lot of time. How's that for lack of productivity? Not just for them, but this is when we come back to the word leverage again. Now, this person is creating negative leverage on the whole of their team. So it works both ways, unfortunately. So you must find a turn off any sabotage loop that is holding you back personally. If you're a leader, welcome to the club, being human. You may be the one who's got one. And any that's holding back your team's performance. Because when you do, results go through the roof. And it's simply because of this simple fact. Think of it like you're wanting to drive a car, your foot's on the throttle, it's on the gas, and you keep putting your foot on the brake at the same time. You want to move forward, but you keep putting your foot on the brake. No matter how much you motivate yourself and try and push yourself forward, this foot goes on the brake and you just won't go. That's what it's like. That's the argument inside the head. So it does take a quite confident and self-aware person to admit that they're doing this. It takes us 4 weeks to get rid of. But when they say what they've lost and what the damage is and what they're fearful of damaging, they go, it's 4 weeks. I've had this for years. It doesn't take long. because it's a mechanism, it's a process. Now, when we're training leaders and managers, we train them how to deal with this because it is so common and so expensive. So it's not just about, what are the leadership styles of a company, of a manager, and how do you do meetings, and how do you do annual reviews. This is the practical stuff of knowing how to understand people so you can spot them and manage around them, even if you're not going to change them, so you don't trigger them, so the person stays in there happy, healthy, doing a great job. So this is how we train our leaders and managers at this level, because this is the stuff that really matters. And if you've got managers, as I said, train them, you can spot and deal with sabotage loop within the team. Imagine the value of that. So sabotage loops are incredibly damaging, incredibly common, and most people don't talk about them. Imposter syndrome. Very rare do we get comments on our posts on LinkedIn. People say, yeah, I've got imposter syndrome. Most people whisper it and message us quietly, because who as a leader wants to actually admit that? Nobody does. So these are the two very practical things to focus on, and productivity goes through the roof. Creating leverage and dealing with sabotage loops. So question, we then need to look at, where does productivity and performance break down? So if we're looking at a very simple model of thinking about running a team or running a business, we need to look strategy, tactical, and operational tasks. And for most companies, well, you need a leader who then has ideas and directions and goals. I like direction more than goals most of the time, to be honest. Setting the direction, the vision, we're going this way, which needs to be turned into tactical processes, which then can be down into the people who are doing the operational tasks. That's my very simple model. And I ask the people I'm working with, where are you spending most of your time? And so commonly, people are down in the weeds. They're doing operational things. They hardly have time to be strategic. And then I say to somebody, well, who should get paid more? The person who flips the burgers at McDonald's, or the person who has a strategy for opening 70 new McDonald's in the next year? So if you're a leader, or you need more of your managers to be leaders, or people step out of the team to become managers, they need to come up from operations to tactical to strategic, depending on what you need. And this is, again, part of the plan. Because your true value as a leader is here. It's your time to think. It's your work is thinking. Because then you can really, really make sure that the people at each level is really doing the job they should be doing. Is this making sense? Is everybody okay with this? You can ask for the slides. There's a replay going to be available to you. But is people finding this useful? Let me know. As usual, don't get many questions. But if you have any questions, please shout. So your true value is here. So the question you ask is, do you allow yourself to be up there? Do you allow yourself to be working at the level that you need to be working at? And a lot of people I work with, most of us, when we start, we're trained to be operational. We learn a task. We learn something which gives us the background of our skill set. So most people start operationally. Then we might get more tactical when we start managing a team and interacting with other teams. But there's a big, big leap of, can we think strategically? Now, if you're in the weeds and you haven't got people supporting you, and you haven't learned how to get out of the lower level operations, a lot of leaders and managers, they either haven't got time, or they just don't know how to think strategically. They haven't practiced it enough. They spend a lot of time being operational, which means as human beings, we stay in our comfort zones and we end up being operational. And then we end up being involved in everything, and every decision comes across our desk, and we end up micromanaging by accident. And we do crazy hours. So the thing is, sabotage loop wise, do you allow yourself to be strategic? Do you feel comfortable being strategic? Here's a question. How many people have you promoted, if you have a bigger team, up into a tactical or strategic level, and they have no idea how to do it, don't know how to think that way, don't know how to behave that way, haven't been trained to do it. I hope this is light bulbs going on. And if you're going, oh, dearie me, this is making sense, why projects get missed or timescales and deadlines get missed, it's very simple to fix, actually. It's quite easy to fix. It takes some knowledge, and it takes some practice, and it takes some focus on operational and some projects to get the practice in. But actually, it's pretty quick to fix because most people don't have the knowledge necessary to even think like this. The second thing is, are you supported to stay there? And one of the things that when we're getting the leaders out of the weeds and up into have enough time to think strategically, look at vision and grow the business and grow it faster. Well, if they're up on their own, where they used to be down at the bottom, who's filling in the gap underneath them? So this is when we often come in and then work with their managers and train their managers to step up as well. So now you've got a proper working hierarchy. So you're not having to drop down because you haven't got anybody to support you. So the important thing is, if you're going up, you bring people up underneath you, especially if you are a fantastic entrepreneurial thinker who doesn't like organization and process very much. Because while you're doing that amazing operational, doing that amazing entrepreneurial thinking, you need someone who can say, hey, boss, give that to me. Let me turn it into something that is sustainable and has a process. And you go, fantastic. So there's lots of reasons why you're most valuable being up at the strategic vision and inventing and creating and innovating. But make sure you've got people who can support you underneath so you can stay there doing the right thing. Steve said something. Many people are promoted to managerial positions because of length of service or because they were brilliant in their previous position. Spoke to someone last night, just said the same thing. This is the classic best salesperson becomes a sales manager. Totally different job, never trained for it, don't understand it, don't think like managers because they're entrepreneurial salespeople, fail miserably, and so does the whole of the team. Yeah, you're spot on, Steve, you are. Right development, they can cause so many problems within their teams. So we all know this is true. This is not new, except we don't look at it. So here's a question. Are you a business leader or changing the loo roll? We put a poll up and a post up, I think it was this week. And you know what the really interesting thing was? A lot of people said, oh, it's good to change the loo roll because it makes you feel respected by your team and you feel part of the team. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with actually mucking in when you need to muck in. But if you're doing all the tasks which are below your pay grade, you're not spending enough time being tactical or strategic. So the painful thing is, are you skillful enough? And most leaders don't want to hear this, especially they've been in role for a long time. They've got years and years of experience. But when we start showing them some stuff and teaching things, you go, I didn't even know that existed. Oh, that makes life so much easier. And guess what? More productive, easy. So how many £8 an hour tasks or $8 an hour tasks or whatever are you spending? What are you doing that's below pay grade that you're not doing for a good reason? Being part of the team when it's right to be part of the team, that's a leadership style. Making the coffee, being with them, yeah, that's part of being a good leader. But if you are taken away from the things that only you can do, that's a bad use of your time. Then what about your managers? So everybody at what level? What is the right level of work they should be doing? So if you add all of these up, how much time are you wasting when you should be doing something else? And we did a poll. We asked the question, why don't you delegate to other people? Why do you end up doing jobs below your pay grade? And 70% of people said, because it'll be quicker if I do it. Which means that the bigger the organization, the more complex, the more you're going to do, the longer hours you're going to do, the less you'll trust other people, the less they'll know. You become a single point of failure. If you're not in, then people don't know how to do things, and it's a mess very quickly. 70% of people said, I'll do it. It's quick if I do it, rather than creating leverage, training skills, and getting other people to make sure it's done. And it's breaking this cycle, this loop, which is the really important thing. And once you've broken it, people work better, there's more knowledge. And if you go on holiday, nobody has to phone you up to ask you about stupid stuff that only you know how to do. You get phoned up for the really important things if necessary. So the primary role of a leader or manager is to create leverage. So the full use of the skills, experience, and the team can be used. So what about your leaders and managers? Managing is one of the most complex roles in business. And the reason it is so complex is because it's about people, and people are immensely complex. And one size of thinking does not fit every single person in your team. You have to be highly adaptable as a leader and a manager, even more so as a manager than a leader. Some people are great leaders, terrible managers, and that's good. That's not a problem as long as you know. Some people are more natural managers. Some people are terrible managers, but brilliant leaders. So it's all about knowing your skills and then how to leverage other people to make sure that you're spending the time what you're good at while they can be what they're good at. So we spend a lot of time planning and looking for skills that are not being used within the current team, and then making sure when people employ people, it's like they're filling the gaps so you can stay at the level you should be at easily. And here's the reason. This is the biggest reason of the lot. It's very simple. Most managers, leaders, have never been trained, or have only received very, very basic training. And most of the time, that does not include understanding people at a very deep, practical level. 87% of middle managers say they wish they had more training when they first became a manager. So therefore, what happens? They usually don't get it. Some companies do, a lot don't. And this is the correlation. It's not cause and effect, but 15% of people around the world, only 50% are highly engaged in their jobs. And then, strangely, 81% of employees reporting to recently trained managers said they were more engaged in their jobs. So I think there's a correlation going on. It may not necessarily be cause and effect, but these numbers seem to sort of add up, don't they? Scary and painfully expensive, but they add up. And here's the thing. Everyone talks about it. Everyone whispers about how terrible their leader and their manager is, but rarely anybody says anything, because if you criticize your manager, you might lose your job. And I'm working with two people at the moment, separately, different companies, who are paying for their own development quietly without their boss knowing, because they can't tell their boss how not very good they are. I was going to swear then, my apologies. So people will develop themselves because they want to be better at influencing, but also because they want to go and move somewhere else. So often they don't tell the manager or their leader because they're fearful of the jobs. Managers are fearful of for their jobs if they say they're not coping. I had a person actually say to me, I don't really know what I'm doing. I've been promoted. I don't really know. It's failing. We talked about working together, and they said, I can't go to my manager and ask for money because I've just been promoted and they're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. And they said, let me do this for the next 6 months. And if I'm still failing, I'll come back to you and I'll pluck up courage to ask them. So how much has that company lost in, damage and productivity and sales? Because they're going to wait a few months to see if they're any good. So the cost is actually happening, but they won't ask because they don't want to say I'm not coping. Adding imposter syndrome into this, you can see why people don't want to talk about it. And also number 3, company leaders don't want to because they think it's expensive, and also they don't know how to, because after the amount of years that this sort of development work has not been done, a lot of the people at the higher level never had it either. So I did it without it, or I don't know what to do. I don't know what to hire. Most HR people, I'm going to be really honest, don't really know either. So how do we deal with this? Well, I'm glad you're on this training. So people leave managers, not companies. That's the most common thing. Your managers, your skill to motivate, influence, and control your teams is essential to hitting results. 75% of people who voluntarily leave their job leave because of bad management, not because it was a bad job. So communication, motivation, direction, leadership, feedback, all of these things which are absolutely core of a manager's role, most people don't know how to do. Simply don't know. So, simple question. Do you need to increase your leverage and influencing skills and leadership skills? What about your managers? Managers make or break projects and teams. When we do an analysis of a company and a team, say a director's managers, vast majority never had any training, and a significant number, 50% plus usually, are not what I call natural managers, meaning they don't think like managers. Hence, the best salesperson thinks like a salesperson. That's how they're wired to think. And then they're put over to be a manager, and it's a completely different way of thinking. They just don't think that way. They're not natural. Some people are natural managers. Imagine what they're like if you find those and you train them. They're your superstars. But there's a lot of companies and times when you need to have managers who are technical experts, who are not natural managers, and they're really important to train because they don't think like one. And you need them though, because you need someone with that technical knowledge to lead the team. So it's a very common, we all know it. It's been around for years, and people don't fix it. And when you do, it's a cheap fix compared to the damage it costs, very simply. So the first step is to diagnose the cause of the underperformance. Who needs to break a sabotage loop? Who needs to be better at creating leverage? Who needs to be held to account? So that is, well, we've just gone over the hour. So just finishing off, this is the painful, pitchy bit. This is all you're going to get. I did apologize. I didn't say pitch, but basically, simple question is, are you in control of your time? How long can you go away for confidently because you know that your team is there? And is the need for you to be involved in the business so strong, you can't go and do the other things that are important in your life. This is the thing. If you cannot walk away from a business, even if it's your own, and take some time off to think and be strategic, there's a problem. So do the simple maths. That's my recommendation. If you think about it in two ways, add up the salary of the team, of the person you're in. It may be your team, you're at the top, or it may be one of your directors who's not a natural leader or manager. Add up the numbers of the salaries, then add up the cost of that function, either to go if it goes wrong or what it produces for the company, and then just think, would they be worth investing and giving some help to? Because as soon as you turn some negative leverage into positive leverage, it's literally a 10x, 20x, 30x return on investment. Just look at, you spent some money and time and effort on the people who need this, and wow, leverage creates a massive result. So what is being lost? What is being gained? Could be gained if you did this. It's as simple as that. So coming to the end, if you want to book in a call, you can do so here. I'm just going to publish that. Please just do so if you want to have a chat. Next thing we're going to do is, do you have any questions? Because this is pretty much where we're going to finish off now. So if any questions or any comments, please let me know. We have two core programs. The Alpha program, which is specialist in removing sabotage loops, and the Certain Change program, which is about leadership and management, about creating leverage and accountability and making them skillful. So our job is to help you beat Price's Law. That's our job. Terrible statistic. Our job is to help you do that. So if there's any questions, please put them up now. I'd love to hear from them. If you don't, we'll call it a day and hope that's giving you something to think about. If you want to book in, please do so. If you want to message me, then please do. We can have a chat and we can talk about what your company needs to get the best out of you and your team and get rid of a load of stress and improve productivity. I like things that create productivity, and to be honest, it's very simple. People are happier. Even if it's just one thing, you stop one decent person from leaving because they are enjoying their work more and they're more productive. What is the cost of replacing someone who's key? And how long does it take to replace them and bring them up to speed with someone new? It's so expensive, but it means having to do something now, and hopefully you'll see the value in that. So if that's the case, just please book a call. Thank you, David. I really appreciate that. Give me a shout if you need to, everybody. So unless there's any other questions, we'll call it a day. And the replay will be available tomorrow. Probably it will go out to you. But thank you very much for attending. I'll just wait for anyone. Steve, thank you very much. Yeah, great session. Oh, even if I do say so myself. Oh, and I'm going to be doing a short training on the difference between confidence and arrogance, because that's another sabotage loop. People scared of being called arrogant so much, they haven't got the confidence to say how good they are. That's a huge one. It's all about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is one of the biggest problems in business, but nobody wants to talk about it. So scary. How to manage a team of people belonging to a particular region. There are cultural differences. I'm going to go for just what you said there. But this is universal. I've trained this across the world. I've shown managers how to do this across the world. And the human brain is similar across the whole world. There are cultural differences that managers and leaders have to take into account. But the basic stuff, the really valuable stuff is the same the world over, because we're human beings. The cultural stuff, that can be gone round and over the top, and there's ways of dealing with any cultural thing. And I was told, when I've been to India, I've been to China, I've had this one of my colleagues trained my content in South America and America, UK, Europe, Switzerland, all sorts of different places with all sorts of different cultures, and everybody got it because it's about human beings. And all they did was they just did the slight tweaks and adaptations which come naturally to them. But when you understand what's more human behavior is more powerful than culture. Because I work with many people who say to me, I come from this particular thing and we can't do this. And I just say, so how would you do it in your culture? And they always come up with an answer. Always. Okay. Well, give me a shout if you want to oh, I can't even send me a name. I'm tired at the end of the day. My apologies. But the best thing to do is, if you're going to start learning to be a manager, learn this early and you will go far very quickly. So is there any questions, any other questions, any other thoughts? My apologies for getting your name on my brain. Pankaj. No, I don't know. My apologies. So any other questions? Anybody else? If not, we'll call it a day. And thank you very much for joining us. Thanks, everybody. Take care then. Bye-bye.